Right now, somewhere on the ocean, there are about 6,000 ships carrying roughly 250 million tons of cargo. Phones, shoes, car parts, bananas, wine, flat pack furniture, basically everything you own that wasn't made in the country that you live in. It almost certainly arrived on a ship inside a metal box. And here's the thing, that metal box, it's one of the most quietly world-changing inventions of the 20th century. Not the internet, not the microchip, a steel rectangle. This is the story of how the humble shipping container transformed the global economy, and why life without it would look almost unrecognizable. To understand why the shipping container mattered, you have to understand what shipping looked like before it existed. For literally thousands of years, moving goods by sea meant loading things by hand. Barrels, crates, sacks, loose bundles, each one carried up a gangplank, one at a time by dock workers called longshoremen. A single ship might take a week to unload. A week. And the cargo hold was basically organized chaos. Things stacked on top of each other, shifting around at sea, getting wet, getting damaged, and getting stolen. Theft was so common that it had a name. It was called pilferage. Dockers would hide goods in their clothes, in hollowed-out loaves of bread, in fake cast-on leg casts. There are stories of workers walking out with whole sides of beef. The docks were basically a free-for-all. And shipping was genuinely expensive. In the 1950s, loading costs alone could account for up to 25% of the total cost of shipping goods. For a lot of products, it was simply cheaper to make things locally than to ship them internationally. The world economy was far less connected than you'd imagine. Trade happened, but it was slow, expensive, and inefficient. Now enter Malcolm McLean, a trucking company entrepreneur from North Carolina, who, in the 1950s, had a problem. He was watching ships being loaded at a dock, one item at a time, and he thought, this is ridiculous. What if instead of unloading the truck, sorting the goods, loading them onto the ship, unloading the ship, sorting again, and loading them onto another truck at the other end, you just put the whole truck on the ship? He didn't invent the idea of a shipping container. Others had tried before, but McLean was the first to actually commercialize it at scale. In 1956, his ship, the Ideal X, sailed from Newark, New Jersey to Houston, Texas, carrying 58 metal containers on its deck. The loading took just a few hours, not days. The economics were staggering. Before containers, loading a ship cost around $5.83 per ton. McLean's system, 16 cents per ton. That's not an improvement, that's a revolution. But McLean did something else that was just as important as the box itself. He made the box standard. He lobbied the International Organization for Standardization, the ISO, to agree on universal dimensions. And in 1968, that became reality. Every container, everywhere in the world, would be the same size. 20 feet long or 40 feet, same width, same height, with the same corner fittings, so cranes and ships and trucks and trains could lock them in place anywhere on Earth. This was the hidden genius. It wasn't just a box, it was a universal plug that connected the entire global transport network. Once the standard was in place, the whole world started to rewire itself around it. Ports were completely redesigned. Instead of a chaotic mess of dock workers and gangplanks, you started to see massive cranes. Giant steel structures that could lift a container off a ship and stack it in a yard in under 2 minutes. The crane operators became the new longshoremen, except instead of thousands of workers per ship, you might only need a few dozen. That did mean job losses at the docks, and significant ones. The transformation caused enormous disruption to port communities around the world. This isn't a story with only winners. But for the global economy, the effects were enormous. Shipping got so cheap that it stopped being a barrier. A factory in China could now produce goods and ship them to Europe or America at a cost that was almost negligible compared to the price of the product. The container is, more than almost anything else, why the phrase "made in China" became so common. Supply chains stretch across the entire planet. Companies realized they didn't need to make things near where they were sold. They could source raw materials in one country, manufacture in another, assemble in a third, and sell anywhere in the world. The iPhone is a famous example. Designed in California, chips from Taiwan, rare earth minerals from Congo, glass from Kentucky, assembled in China, and sold everywhere. None of that is possible without the container. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the scale of this system. There are around 800 million container shipments every year. If you laid all the containers currently in circulation end to end, they'd circle the Earth more than twice. The world's largest container ships, the kind made by companies like Maersk and Costco, can carry around 24,000 containers at once. If you could put all those containers on trucks and line them up bumper to bumper, the convoy would stretch over 140 kilometers. And these ships run on tight schedules. They call into port, the cranes go to work, and within 24 to 48 hours, the ship is gone again, loaded with a completely new set of containers, heading somewhere else. It's a machine of extraordinary precision, operating almost invisibly. Most of us have never seen a container port up close, but they never stop. We mostly notice the container system when it breaks. You might remember 2021 during COVID, the Ever Given, a 400-meter container ship got stuck sideways in the Suez Canal for 6 days. Just one ship, and it delayed an estimated $9.6 billion worth of goods per day. Or the global supply chain crisis of 2021, where ports got so congested, partly from pandemic disruption, that you had hundreds of ships sitting off the coast of Los Angeles just waiting to unload. Shelves went empty, delivery times stretched for months, prices went up on everything. It turned out that this invisible system that runs the world has very little spare capacity built in. It's efficient precisely because it's lean, and lean systems break badly when they're disrupted. Here's the thing about the shipping container. It doesn't feel like a revolutionary invention. It's a metal box. There are no moving parts. It doesn't use electricity. There's no algorithm. It's just a very precisely sized rectangle with some locking corners. But the standardization of that box is what allowed the entire modern global economy to exist. It made trade so cheap that where something was made stopped mattering. It wired up supply chains that now span every continent. It helped lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in manufacturing economies. And it means the trainers on your feet probably visited 4 countries before they reached your door. The next time you see a container ship in the news or pass one on the motorway, that big metal box on the back of the truck, just remember, that unremarkable rectangle is one of the most important objects in the modern world.